Here we go.
Rabbi Mathel, please teach her.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. So this is for a first Shlema for cousin of mine who's got COVID and other people, and Chaim Ben Reina and Shifra Simcha Bat Yeta, my mom, and other people who need a refuah.
Amen.
Okay, continuing with the malacha of winnowing, selecting, and sifting. We did half. There's another couple of points here which I didn't have a chance to discuss. One is also permitted to extract the unwanted if some of it is. For example, one may remove unwanted cream from milk if one leaves behind some of the cream. The term immediate use means within the time it would reasonably take to prepare for the forthcoming meal. Such a period may vary according to the size of the meal and the amount of preparation.
Kev, can you hear me?
Yeah?
No, you just went a bit funny there. Was it me? Could Gavin hear Kevin properly?
Yes, okay.
One may set the table with a bunch of silverware for an imminent meal, that is, taking from unwanted for immediate use. If one wishes to set the table on Friday night for Shabbos morning, one may not sort the pieces as they are not going to be for immediate use. A practical solution is to scatter them wherever they are, whereby they are no longer in a bunch. Each fork, knife, and spoon can then be put into place. When putting silverware away in a drawer, it may not be sorted into separate compartments. Okay, let's just leave it there. And there's another couple of points on this one. We'll finish off tomorrow.
All right. So, guys, we've only got a half an hour. That's it. So, just in brief, I'm just going to share the screen to a 2-minute summary, then we're done. As you know, here are the two divergent opinions. Rav Zaved in the 37th daf said that the default position is that if you muad in one situation, you muad in all situations, unless you've got evidence to the contrary. And Rav Papa, so he is very conservative. He's taking no risks. Rav Papa said, look, if an ox is muad in one circumstance, they are not automatically assumed to be muad in other types of circumstances, whether it's an issue of species, age, or humans to animals. These are circumstances. So I prefer to use the word circumstances rather than species. So Rav Papa rules that in the Mishnah, we are dealing here with halacha, which is compared to Rav Zaved is saying, yeah, the Mishnah is actually making use of behavioral observation, and that's when the principles apply. In other words, it's not halacha. It's saying what happens if the situation is as follows. Okay, so there are three main statements in the Mishnah, and the statements are as follows. Obviously the Mishnah is longer than this. I've just made it a very, very quick summary. So an ox that is muad regarding animals of its own species, but is not a muad regarding animals not of its own species. Right, that's fairly clear. Then you have an ox that is muad regarding people, but is not a muad regarding animals. And the final statement is an ox that is muad regarding young animals, but is not a muad regarding mature animals. So Rav Zved uses his evidence from the last statement, which says an ox that is muad regarding young animals, but is not a muad regarding mature animals. He's using this against Rav Papa. Now, although the Mishnah does sound like Rav Papa, because what did we say is that Rav Papa is saying that if it's muad in one circumstances, in this case, young animals, it's not muad in a different circumstance regarding, in this case, mature animals. So it would seem to be an argument for Rav Papa. We said in summary that the Mishnah doesn't come to teach you the obvious. So if it's mentioning it, then there must be more to it than that. It can't be obvious. So he's saying the non-obvious is that the default position, Rav Savid, is that if it's muad regarding young animals, it's muad regarding mature animals. Why would Rav Papa use the proof against Rav Papa is that it's saying if this is obvious, why would the Mishnah actually state it? So it can't be according to Rav Papa. So what's Rav Papa's defense of this? Do you guys remember? I'm just testing you.
Kevin, you okay? Let's try it.
What's Rav Papa's defense or his argument? Know what you
Yes. So Rav Savid is attacking Rav Papa and saying to him, look, this is such an obvious thing that young animals, that if it's more regarding a young animal, let me just put Arthur on mute. Arthur, can you put yourself on mute?
He's on mute.
Okay. So this is what it's saying, Kevin, in a nutshell, because we can't go on unless the obvious is understood, is that Rav Papa says that if it's muad in one circumstance, it's not muad in another. And, Rav Savid is saying you don't have to state this. It's obvious, because if you see an animal that's got a propensity to attack things that are small and defenseless, it's obviously, and that's why it's muad, because it habitually is a bully. It's not necessarily muad regarding mature animals. And I'm fine with that statement if it can be observed by others and it can be known that it doesn't attack mature animals, because an animal is bigger than it. But what would happen is that you stating that this is the case, and I'm using this as evidence against you, Rav Papa, because if it's obvious, why would the Mishnah mention the obvious? It's mentioning it because it's not obvious, simply because is that unless it's observed that it doesn't attack mature animals because it's only a bully, then we've got to assume that if it's attacking in one circumstance, it's attacking in another. So Rav Papa, what do you have to say to this? Kevin, what's your answer? What was Rav Papa's defense?
I'm just going to have I probably saw it, but I don't remember. I'm saying maybe Rav Papa says if the animal is muad for one species in one sector or one, then it's muad for everything. It can't be selectively muad.
No, Rav Papa is the opposite. Rav Papa is saying.
Rav Papa said it. Is that what he? Okay.
Yeah, so not bad. Look, Rav Papa's default position is the opposite. Is if it's muad in one circumstance, it's not obviously or necessarily muad in another, unless there's evidence to the contrary. So, what, Gavin? What's Rav Papa's argument to this?
I lost a bit of track, but I could try to take a swing at it. So basically, Rav Papa holds by the fact that what was Rav Speed saying to him? He was saying to him that
look, Rav Savid was saying to him as follows: is that
just tell me what it said. That's all, and I'll
yeah.
you.
So I'm not going to answer it for you. Don't worry. So Rav Savid was saying as follows: look, the Mishnah doesn't mention the obvious. That's what he was saying. It's obviously logical that if it's a bully for young animals, it's not necessarily going to be a bully for mature animals, because maybe it only picks on smaller things. And I'm saying that if I've got witnesses to testify to that, I'm prepared to concede that. However, your position is that it's always it's always if it's muad in one circumstances, it's in one circumstance, it's not muad in other circumstances. So if that's true, and it's an obvious thing in this particular third line of the Mishnah, why mention it? In other words, the reason why the Mishnah is mentioning it is because it's not obvious. And it's not obvious because it's like I'm saying, Rav Papa. It's that if it damages in one circumstance, it damages in another circumstance unless there's evidence. And the proof that I'm correct is that the Mishnah only mentions things that are not obvious, because if logic can deduce it, then why mention it? In other words, if every time you see a case where an ox damages young animals on a muad basis, you can always, for sure, know that it's not going to attack mature animals because it's scared, then the logic would dictate there's no exceptions. So therefore, why mention it unless you're wrong, unless we have to see and we're not sure? What's Rav Papa's response to that?
Okay, that's a good one. So Rav Papa will, yeah, I can't remember exactly. I'm not trying to make it up though. What would Rav Papa say? Rav Papa would say that. So Rav Tzvi is saying that unless proven. So Rav Tzvi is saying with the younger animals, it's obvious that with the older animals, it's going to be the same thing. So Rav Papa would say no.
No. That's not what Rav Tzvi is saying. Let me say it again. You're almost there. Rav Tzvi is saying, listen, I personally agree with this, that it would have to state it, that if it's not known, the circumstance, that you have to say that if it's would gore young animals, it could gore mature animals, and therefore let's not take risks unless we see it desisting from mature animals. So I think the Mishnah is mentioning this. I don't have an issue with the Mishnah mentioning this because it's saying that if it is presented that it's known. Remember, Rav Tzvi is saying in all these three examples, he talks about observable behavior. So he says, if the Mishnah is coming to bring observable behavior and says, if you can see that it doesn't attack mature animals, even though biologic it should, because biologic, you could think maybe it doesn't attack mature animals, but we have to see it. And unless we see it, we don't know. But the reason why this Mishnah is mentioning it is because you would have to see it. This has to be observable. But Rav Papa is saying in all circumstances, if it attacks in one circumstance, it doesn't attack in another. So then Rav Tzvi says to Rabbi Papa, okay, let's play this game. Let's say we see an animal being a bully to the young. And you always say it's not muad in regard to another circumstance. So why mention in the Mishnah? If you can guarantee that, then that's fine. But why would the Mishnah have to mention something that is automatic?
So it's obviously not always the case, but the two of them have different positions. So I mean, Rav Papa's position, which is the halacha, is that every time that if an animal goes for the young, it's unless it's observed that it goes to the older.
No.
It does.
No. Gav, let me explain this to you again. Rav Papa is calling it halacha. He's calling it rulings. Okay, so he's saying it doesn't have to be observed. You can know the rule that if it damages in one circumstance multiple times, it's not going to damage in another circumstance. He's seeing this as halacha.
What did I say? But that's what I said.
No, you said if it is known. That's Rav Tzvi.
No, because Rav Tzvi is saying that even if that's what you just told me that's what Rav.
No, that's what Rav Tzvi is saying, but he's not. That's not what Rav Papa is saying. So
yes, Rav Papa doesn't need to say that. As far as he's concerned, it's never same different species, different age, older versus younger. It's not more unless it's been observed. That's what I'm saying.
No, that's not the case. He's saying the halacha is it's not muad. The only person that talks about observation is Rav Tzvi. That's what I'm saying.
But I'm saying, but isn't Rav Papa? But Rav Papa surely. So okay, so that's I agree with you. Okay, sorry. All right, so I'm confusing you. But the halacha, Rav Papa, he dictates the halacha, and the halacha is straightforward. If it's a different species, it's a different. It's not muad. That's all.
Okay, so explain it simply. I'm just saying, if anybody was listening in, just explain it to me simply. What's going on with the argument? Start from the beginning.
So Rav Tzvi says there has to be, like he says it has to be observed. And the other one says, Rav Papa says it doesn't have to be observed. It's just that's a ruling, even without observation, without anything. That's what I'm trying to say. Listen to me.
Perfect. Now that's perfect.
Okay, so I'm just trying to clear. I don't think I explained it properly. So even without observation or anything, the default position is that it's not muad in a different scenario. If it's a different species, different age group, age bracket, whatever, young versus old, and that's it. He's saying that it's not.
Correct. So the perfect thing of it is Arthur coined the phrase the other day, is that Rav Papa says you're innocent until proven guilty. In other words, if it's observed to have attacked another species more than 3 times, it's muad. But unless that is the case, it is deemed to be innocent. Whereas Rav Zved says, who's taking chances here? I'm not taking chances. It's guilty. If it's muad in one case, he's saying animal doesn't change its nature. Just like if a person's aggressive, they're aggressive in many circumstances in their lives. He's saying that people don't compartmentalize, neither do animals. Is that animals, unless there's a very logical reason, would remain aggressive throughout. And therefore, why would his attack on Rav Papa is he's saying that since there's a logical reason for a animal to refrain from attacking a mature animal because it's much bigger and formidable compared to a new calf that doesn't have the defense mechanisms, is it's not necessary, although I agree with you, it's not necessarily going to be muad for mature animals. The reality is it has to be observed at not being attacking muad animals, because I wouldn't want to take a chance. If it's shown that it's gored young animals 3 times, you would say logically it shouldn't, but I would be careful. But you're not being careful. You're saying it's automatically fine. And logic is telling you that it won't attack mature animals. But if you write that it's logic, why mention something that is logic if it's a bankable rule? In other words, if you would know in all circumstances that if it attacked the young, it wouldn't attack the old, then it's logical. Why would you need the Mishnah to state the obvious? So Rav Papa has to defend itself against that.
So what it obviously does, it's not consistently like that. It can happen. It's pretty sporadic, but it happens every now and then that you have scenarios where it attacks the young and eventually does attack the older as well. So
yes.
that can obviously happen.
So what did Rav Papa say as a defense? Do you remember? If you don't, it's okay.
No, I'll be honest. I
Okay.
try to work it out.
So Rav Papa turns around to Rav Zved and says something like this. Not exactly. So, well, you can't read my mind. So, I might have a different reason. So you might come across and say, listen, logic wouldn't dictate the way you're saying it. You're saying logically, if it attacks small animals, it might not have the gumption to attack full-grown animals because it might be that ox might be chicken. That ox might be scared. So in that particular case, no, Kevin got it. So in that particular case, that's what you're thinking, but I'm not thinking like that. What I'm thinking is that you could think logically that the minute the animal has broken through its inhibitions regarding this particular species by goring a young animal, it has gone through its inhibitions regarding any animal from the species, whether that is a mature member of the animal or whether it's a young member. Because if an animal is aggressive and gets used to being aggressive, it will be aggressive throughout. And that's your argument, Rav Zved. So I would say that the reason this halacha is put down is to show you that that logic is flawed. You can't assume it's going to be aggressive for the reasons which...
yes. Okay, yes. That's Rav Papa's argument. Sorry, I should have said that. Thank you.
No problem. So then Rav Papa says, you know what? You want to play this special game, this game of trying to read thoughts and things like that. So what we're going to do in these circumstances is I've got a question for you, Rav Zved. I mean, obviously I'm paraphrasing. He doesn't obviously quite word it like that, but I thought it just adds to the dramatic effect. Let me just share my screen. So Rav Papa uses his proof from a different segment. Okay, I'm going to share it now. So his view is he's asking Rav Zavid to explain the second statement, which is an ox that is muad regarding people, but is not muad regarding animals. So he was saying, look, that is pretty obvious, Rav Papa is saying. Why? Why is it obvious, Gavin? Kev?
It's a completely different species. They're different type of things, you know. So an animal normally resides, it sits with its own species, and if it's never attacked its own species, then it's a safe. Then it's tam. It's never been wild. But if it attacks a person, it's a completely different element. So certain animals only attack people, and this is, just an example of it.
Okay, look, I think you're bringing a good point. The Gemara brings a different point, but I think you've got a valid point, honestly. So the Gemara brings a different point. It says, look, people are very hard to kill and attack because they've got two things in their favor. They've got divine providence, because everybody's life was created for a special purpose from Hashem to test them in this world. An animal has got no such free choice, and therefore whether this ox dies or that ox dies is inconsequential. And therefore, since they've got mazal, which in the second daf is described by Rashi as a guardian angel, is that person, if they're not meant to be inflicted or dead, they won't be. In other words, they're going to be hard to injure or kill, specifically kill. Maybe for their stupidity, they'll get injured, but Hashem might protect them against getting killed if they're not meant to get killed. So they're meant to be a parent to a particular child that finds a cure for cancer. It's not going to kill them. Do you understand? It might maim them, but they're still going to get married and have kids or whatever the case may be. So they've got divine providence. Also, people have what you call mazal in the sense of intelligence, meaning they've got intellect, where we described the other day as two oxen that are charging at each other. Now, any human being would know that any conflict, look, you get a lot of goyim, with respect, that go to a bar, have 10 pints of beer, and start to punch each other. At that point, they're no better than an animal. Really, they're no better. Not in terms of behavior, nor in terms of logic. Because, quite frankly, you're going to end up injured or dead if you combat somebody all the time in bar fights. So what it's saying is people generally, when they see an ox kicking sand backwards and looking to charge, they're going to get out of dodge. They're not going to say, listen, I own this property ox, you need to go to the deeds office and check it out. He's going to get out of there and avoid that situation. So people have intelligence to almost have a sixth sense to be aware of that circumstance. And therefore, the logic according to the Gemara is, if this ox was so successful at injuring or killing people, it's going definitely to be successful at killing an animal that doesn't have these two vantage points at its favor. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
So based on this, Rav Papa is saying, listen, this makes sense to me. I've often said that if it's not muad in one, if it's muad in one case, it's not muad in another. I'm fine with this statement. You can't be fine with it, Rav Zavid. And the reason you can't be fine with it is you used logic before that said if something is obvious, the Mishnah can't mention it because it's logically obvious. And I'm saying, I'm going to turn this around on you on this people versus animals story and say, well, how do you explain that one? Now it's your chance to sit in the defense box and see how you're going to explain that one. You understand? Rav Papa's now using the same logic that Rav Zavid used to him against him now. He's saying these are fine for me. These are halachic rulings, but for you judging on behavior. So I'm saying, how do you answer this one? That it's not a muad regarding animals. What's your defense? So what does Rav Zavid say in response? I want to see if you guys remember.
I don't. Let me see if I can try to work it out.
Guys, this is good revision. I'm sorry. I know.
Rav Zavid said, okay. It says, only if you've seen the other animal do it to somebody else is it exempt. But if it's done, it's muad no matter what. It's muad to all animals unless you've seen the animal.
Correct, but no, that's not what we're asking.
Exception.
That's not what we're asking. We're asking
Oh.
Rav Zavid to defend himself against Rav Papa's accusation. So he's saying, is how do you explain a case? At what point were you listening? Because you missed it a little bit.
Okay. Oh, so you're talking about his defense against
Rav Papa.
David. I mean, Rav Papa. I actually remember this.
Tell
From
me.
yesterday.
I know you do.
Hold on. I'm just trying to get it in my head. Give me a second. What? Because I know he took it from the Mishnah. He said to him, "Damn it! Someone took my tongue, Damon. I've gone blank now. I do remember it.
I know you know it. I know.
I remember it. I can't.
So I'm going to quote this in Arthur's merit because I know he knows this. So guys, Gavin, can you think of it before I quote it in Arthur's merit? Because I know he knows it.
Well, Rav Zavid has to. I'm going to tell you what he has to try to do here. He has to basically try and motivate that this comment.
He said, I got it. I remember.
Yes.
He said something. Would you trust him around your child or something like that?
No, that was my thing. That's excellent.
Oh, that's your thing. Okay.
But my thing was I understand Rav Zavid because I understand to protect one's child, you'd rather go on thinking somebody's guilty than innocent. That was my
yeah. Oh, then yes, I did listen to you then. Sorry, didn't mean to.
You did. No problem. Gav, what we're saying here is something very different. I've given you a chance. Would you mind if I answer this? Are you okay with it?
Yeah, go ahead. It'll come back to me. I just actually don't.
All right. So what Rav Zavid said is, listen, I'm not talking. I always hold that if an ox is muad regarding people, it's not it's definitely muad regarding animals because of that logic.
Okay.
But I'm responding here that this is talking. This in the Mishnah is talking about a case of reversion back to a tam. So
yes.
The default position is, I'm telling you, if an ox is muad for people and people have got divine protection from Hashem and intelligence, and it's definitely not safe around animals that are brainless and don't have any sort of destiny. So I mean, who cares if Betsy lives or another ox lives? So in that particular case, what we're saying is that we're talking about that the default position is if it's guilty for people, it's guilty for animals. What I'm saying is a revision of. Can you put yourself in mute?
Yeah, hold on. You need to stop. You're writing.
Okay, so what I'm saying, Gavin, is as follows: is that Kev, are you still there?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is as follows. Rav Zavid is saying to Rav Papa, look, I'm talking about a revision of back to tam status from muad. So I'm telling you, if it's muad for people, it's muad for animals. But if we have witnesses and they're observing that the animal went to obedience school and it made a full teshuvah, and you had trainers, personal trainers, and it was around other animals, and it desisted 3 times in circumstances where it could have caught other animals, but it didn't. In that particular case, you can make an exception and say that that animal, as far as animals are concerned, will revert back to a tam, but it will stay muad as far as people are concerned. So I'm talking about a reversion back to a calm status if it gores 3. If it desists from goring 3 times. That's what Rav Zavid's argument he says. Otherwise, I hold by what I'm saying. This is what the Mishnah is talking about. You with me?
Yeah, that's a good point. But an ox is always muad with people anyway, so it can't revert to.
No, an ox is not muad with people anyway at all. In other words, of course not. Not at all, Gav. An ox.
So what was the fault muad then? We've learned along the way. There's something else there. Sorry, I'm just getting confused there.
Okay, Gavin's bringing up an excellent point. There is an issue that if an ox gores a person, there is no such thing, according to Rabbi Tarfon, as half payment damages.
There we go. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't think it was Rabbi Akiva. I think it was Rabbi Talfon. I might be wrong. It could have been Rabbi Akiva. I think it was Rabbi Talfon. I'm pretty sure it was Rabbi Talfon that said if it's, I don't hold by this half payment damages, but it could have also been Rabbi Akiva. I need to check my source, Gavin. But there's no such thing. The rabbis generally say that it's tam with people and then it becomes muad. But I think Rabbi Talfon turns around and says, no, if it gores people, it's full payment damages.
That's what I actually thought. So that's fine. It's just an opinion from Rabbi Talfon, that's fine. Thank you, Damon.
All right, listen, I'll put on the group. It's either Rabbi Akiva or Rabbi Talfon. I think it's Rabbi Talfon. Now, I'm going to, Kevin has to go.
Yeah, I've got to go. Cheers. Thanks.
All right, guys, we're going to end off on this note. I thank you very much. I hope it's been okay.
Damon, if it's Rabbi Tarfon, it'll be easy to understand because Tam and Tarfon, that'll be easy. If that's Rabbi Tarfon's ruling.
Yes.
That'll be easy to remember.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. All right, I'll check it out, guys. I'll let you know.
Thank you.
All right, well done, guys.